I'm Louise Krikorian. This is Shaping Our Story, where I talk with exemplary leaders about passion, purpose, and perseverance to show you how to thrive. Today, our guest, Nancy May, is an exemplary leader in corporate governance, elder care, and food. Her 3 podcasts are Boardroom's Best, Elder Care Success, and Family Tree Food and Stories, which she co-hosts with restaurateur Sylvia Lovely. Nancy was chosen for the 2025 Top 50 Over 50 Podcasters Worldwide Award, the Elder Care Silver Source Award, and the Forbes Top Corporate Governance Award. Her book, My Family Tree, Food and Stories, is a journal that prompts you to write and share your favorite foods, recipes, and stories. As Nancy says, great stories and memories begin at the dinner table. Welcome, Nancy May.
Thank you, Louise. It's great to be here with you.
Unbelievable. When did we meet? We must have met about, I don't know, maybe about a year ago or so.
A year or two? I think so.
Yeah. And we were at the Florida Podcasters Association meeting at in Tampa, Florida at Oxford Exchange. And we've talked about PodFest because we've both attended PodFest. I volunteered there. But it just goes to show that when you walk into a meeting or some sort of conference or workshop, look around and see who you want to sit next to.
Get there early and choose your seat. Absolutely.
Because I got there early and then I was looking around and I think I actually moved my stuff when you came in because I was one seat away from you. So you have so many interests, 2 podcasts, a completely different background. What is
actually 3 podcasts, but
3 podcasts. Okay. So the 3 podcasts are, you have the one on elder care and the one on food. And then what's the other one?
Started, the elder care and the food, well, the elder care and the first one I did was Boardroom's Best, which is where I started dealing with corporate governance issues back in, God, that was my first one back in 2016 or 2017 when I first started. So.
And then you had the idea for working with elder care because that's personal for you and helping your parents.
I was taking care of mom and dad from 1,200 miles away and saving $260,000 a year. And people said, "How are you doing it?" And I said, "Well, I'll write a book," and which I did, on how to survive 911 medical emergencies, which has got all sorts of great ratings. And said, "Well, if you want to know, I'll do a podcast." It was a lot easier than doing it one-on-one and showing people how to do things.
When did you start that?
Oh, I think that was, I'm going to say 2017 when I started, 2020. So almost 6 years ago. Well, it had to be more than that because my dad passed 6 years ago. So it was probably I'm going to say 2019, probably when I started.
Okay. And then you started Family Tree Food and Stories.
Yeah, it's a little over a year old.
It's interesting because the first one that you did on your corporate world, the corporate life, seems to be more serious.
Well, yeah, it is serious. There's some lightness to it, but corporate governance is not exactly woo,
Mm-hmm. It's serious. Then you move into elder care, which is very touching and difficult at times because I've dealt with that too, and that's advice and helping people maneuver a difficult time in their life.
Correct.
And then you come to Family Tree Food and Stories podcast, where I was reading your reviews, and you had a review recently where the woman was talking about how funny the 2 of you are and how delightful it is to listen to you. And, it's interesting how you can make things so funny when you're talking about dog food.
Woof.
Yes, you say woof in it several times.
Yes. I'm morph into the dog at one point in the show. So, do your ears hang low, as they say.
That's so funny. So, of all of those things, and it might even be something other than that, what is your greatest passion or your greatest interest?
Oh, my greatest passion and greatest interest is not necessarily related directly to podcasting, but I think it is really pushing the creative edge whenever I possibly can. And that includes in serious things as well. And always, what's the different twist? How can I make it different? How can I make it interesting and make it relevant to what I like to do, as well as being of value to somebody else? So I've always been known for being pretty direct in working with people, but the Family Tree Food and Stories is a little bit of my creative zinginess where I started in advertising in my career. So I'm bringing all that sort of full circle, which is rather fun.
And you have a co-host with that as well.
I
That's
do.
Sylvia Lovey. Lovely.
Sylvia Lovely up in Lexington, Kentucky.
Hmm. She's funny too.
Oh, she's funny. Yeah, I've got the northern and she's got that southern twang and the two meet in the middle.
And you start talking about wine and all different kinds of things in your pizza episode and Chianti, and she just gets going. She's really funny as
Yeah,
well.
it's a good match.
Yeah. So just to summarize what you said about your greatest interest, it's to, in essence, with this podcast, I think it's really bringing your sense of what you love to other people, and they enjoy that.
Absolutely. I am not a great cook, so it's not necessarily about recipes and being perfect in the kitchen. It's truly about how food impacts our lives every day and brings us closer to the people that we love and care about, and maybe don't care too much about because there's a little bit of that too.
Who was the first person who inspired you?
Oh, it sounds kind of trite, but I think my dad was a big inspiration in my life for many, many reasons. He was an entrepreneur himself. He took over his own father's business. And over the years, I just learned so much by watching and being part of, I mean, not really directly related to what he was doing, but just watching everything. Every time he came home, I would see what he brought home, what magazines he was reading and going through, what research he was doing. I loved walking the factory floor and being part of the conferences and conventions, which were our family vacations. And both he and my mom worked together on that later on. My mom got involved in it. And he had a poster which said, protests against the rising tide of conformity, that as kids, my mom and I made a needlepoint pillow out of. And I would say that that mantra has rung pretty deep in my DNA. So he was a great mentor. I had a mentor at J. Walter Thompson, the advertising agency that I first started my career in, who is truly a very good and grounded and decent man. And if I hadn't had a boss like that in the course of my career, I really would not have known what a good what somebody good to work for really was, because I didn't work for my dad. And then I had another fellow who one day pulled me aside, Bob Lee, who was the founder of Lee Hecht Harris and the outplacement firm, who called me into his office one day, said, "Hey, Nance, I want to talk to you." And I said, "The great Bob Lee wants to talk to me? Why?" And he said, I have to tell you why people want to follow you." And he did. And that was, I appreciated his feedback and his honesty and his desire to share that with me. So I would say a mentor doesn't have to be with you your entire life, but sometimes it's just a moment that they take out of their time to share with you and give you the support that you need.
And he told you why people want to follow you?
Hmm.
Huh. Meaning, They're
Well,
willing to.
what was the attractor? Because I think, whether we're in business or we're creators, we have to, I would, following is probably not the right word, but either people are gravitated towards you, some people more than others, or they're repelled by you. Hopefully, they're not repelled by me. But he said, look at, people are not interested in what you think is you as a brand. People care about what you have to say, you, Nancy May, and how you deliver it. And it's different than anybody else. And that is something special. And I appreciated that he actually said that. He said, this sounds a little obnoxious, but he says, you walk into a room and people want to know who you are. And like you said, you moved your chair to sit next to
I
me.
did. And I don't know why. Honestly don't know why.
I
It
have
was
no idea
something
why either.
I just.
But whatever it is, something's happening.
So what did he say was the reason that people want to follow you?
Well, he said you have a spark. You're honest, you're direct, you're not mean, but you're always on target with the things that you say, whether you realize it or not. And I was at the time was trying to create a brand around what I was doing, the consulting work that I was doing. And he said, forget the brand. People are buying you. People want Nancy May. That's it. People don't want the brand. They want the source. So,
Maybe it sounds like because you were authentic. I'm just guessing that.
yeah, I'm pretty direct when people, in fact, I did a program up in New York not too long ago for a company that was dealing with boards of directors. And the folks who attended, I was really kind of shocked me, but one fellow said it was life-changing, which I thought was rather interesting from a board perspective. And a number of them said they had never gotten such direct and unfiltered information to help them in the course of what they were doing from a board perspective. And that's kind of who I am. I'm not mean about it. I tell you what you need to hear in a very unvarnished way. So,
Mhm.
and people don't do that. I think people are too careful about how they, how they share information, or their knowledge with individuals that can be of value to somebody else. This is what it is. And, if I can get you to point Z or B or whatever you need to go to faster by just being direct, I will do that.
Mhm.
That's me.
Well, the sense that I've always had working with you is been that you've done that with me, but you've always done it with respect.
Yeah, I don't intend to be mean in any way, shape, or form.
No.
But if I can get you there faster so that I can move on faster in some cases, then I
There
will
we
do that.
go.
Right? There's a little directness.
So, I was listening to a podcast and I really like the way that this question was asked in an episode of the Mel Robbins podcast with
Ah,
guest Angela Duckworth. And I'd
okay.
like to ask you the same. Would you agree that purpose is having a sense of responsibility and then acting with the intention of helping others?
Ooh, good question. It depends who the purpose or what the purpose is for. Is it for you or for somebody else? Because I think that you could do something purposeful for yourself, or you do it with a purpose of changing or impacting an individual or the world in a different way. So I'm not sure if that actually answers the question. I don't think it's necessarily one thing or the other.
Hmm. Well, do you feel like you have a purpose?
I think I have a purpose to achieve a goal. I wouldn't call it a socially responsible purpose. I'm not out to change the world and make the world more lovable or woo-woo or whatever the case might be. but I certainly don't want to. I guess if I go back to, I'm going to turn this back. So if I go back to something that I learned as a kid in Girl Scouts, right? The old Girl Scout mantra is leave things better than when leave things better when make things better when you leave than when you got there. So I guess you could say, hopefully the world will be just a little bit better when my time is up. So if that's
Mhm.
a purpose, that's a pretty big one.
Well, my life is better because of you.
Well, thank you. That's a very nice thing
Definitely.
to say.
Yeah.
So, like one tick off, I've got one mark done.
And what would you say you've learned from your biggest professional failure?
Ooh, you sent me that question over, and I thought about that, and this again, that sounds pretty, trite. I'm not sure that I look at, I'll call them zigs and zags as failures. They're learning opportunities. But I do remember getting fired once, and that was certainly an experience. But I would say my biggest failure, my biggest mistake was taking a job that I realized was the wrong job about a month and a half in.
Mm.
And I'm not particularly a quitter, but I know when to leave.
Mm.
And in this case, I thought, okay, so 2 points. If the company matched my 401k at the time, I was in my 20s, my late 20s, I matched my 401k, and I thought, okay, if I stick it out for a year, I've got a match. Maybe I'll learn something along the way, which I did. I At the end, I learned more about kindness that was not being given to a certain individual, a couple of different individuals in the department, and I learned more about listening and just how to be empathetic in a way that maybe I hadn't been as observant with before. And I also learned how important reputation is. And my exit strategy at that company was to the boss. His name was Tom. And I said, Tom, I have to be honest with you. I can no longer personally, professionally represent this company. And this is a big Fortune 500 company anymore. I'm afraid that my reputation is going to be damaged if I hang out any longer.
Mm.
And he was shocked. And I explained in a very thoughtful, not a nasty kind of way, what was happening and why I was concerned that in the long run, it was going to be bad for me.
Mhm.
And after I left, 8 other people left.
Like very
So,
soon after.
yeah, within 2 months, they
Mm.
were gone.
Wow.
And nobody had left the year before I had gotten there. They were all there.
Mhm.
So I would say the biggest lesson there I learned was when you make a decision to go into something and it's not right, um, maybe it's important to, well, not maybe, but I think it's important to assess the situation before you make a rash decision on leaving or
Mhm.
exit stage left.
Mhm.
I've done that before, and each time I did not just cut it off immediately. I thought about my decisions and why,
Mhm.
and that's been helpful over the years.
Well, that's interesting because my next two questions talk about dedication and perseverance.
Mm,
So, the question about giving up when things aren't easy, you could be in a situation where you have a new job and then you find a month in that it's not the right place for you, but
mhm,
you persevere and you stay and you try to make changes, and that isn't necessarily positive. And
mhm,
you were aware. You decided, that this is not the right place for me.
mhm,
And it wasn't just because it wasn't easy. It was because it wasn't going to be good for your reputation. So you,
And the boss ended up with I ran into his wife at
mhm.
I was co-chair of a gala, a local gala event, not for profit, and I thought, oh my God, like I don't want to talk to him. Like, oh,
Mm,
but I learned afterwards another consultant had met him and said, you know, Nancy, and he says, oh yeah, I wish I'd never let her go. But apparently, which was a very lovely compliment, we had a great conversation when we met
mhm,
up at this event, and I learned the stories of what he battled as a result of everything that I saw at the time that came back to bite him too. But it was, you know, it was a learning lesson for him as well in the long run.
mhm. So, speaking to doing things if they come easy or they come natural, do you feel that way with your new podcast, with the food podcast? Does that come easy to you? Is that natural, working with a co-host, having fun?
Well, let's put it this way. I would say it's certainly enjoyable, but anything worth doing well takes time and commitment. And easy is relative because I'm the kind of person who, if I start here, I always want to know how do you get it better? Where do you tweak it? What do you do? What am I
Hmm.
learning in different areas that I can bring in, different psychological factors, different research factors? I am not a food expert, although I'm becoming one. So you know, it's an entirely different industry that I'm applying skills that I have and assets that I have in different multiple disciplines to a new category, which adds a different perspective of color and light to things. So hopefully that brings a different kind of value to the show that people are enjoying. And I'm learning along the way. So if things come easy, I think you're not learning. That's my asset or my assessment. If they're difficult, you have to figure out why are they difficult and how do you make it a little less stressful because difficult can be stressful at the same time.
Hmm.
Just like taking care of my parents, it was not an easy thing to do, but I learned how to, I say, take care of mom and dad Inc. Taking care of mom and my parents was, and I see people struggling with this emotionally in such great
Yeah,
turmoil and it destroying their lives.
yeah.
And I treated it like another business without sounding callous about it.
Hmm.
It was very personal in many ways. But as they say, you know, all business is personal. And I think that's true
It's
of
true.
anything, whether it's a
It's
craft or
true.
business.
Does that keep you inspired?
Um, the personal aspect,
Well, the fact
or
that number one, you're doing things that you're not used to doing. You're doing new things, even if they're hard, you're sticking with them. But then you
yeah,
also know that you're helping other people because you're giving information to other people that's useful for you, but then it's also educational and entertaining.
yeah, and how do you push that envelope even further? I've got plans to do bigger and other things with that as an anchor. So I'm always looking for how do you how do you break barriers and change boundaries and make
Hmm.
sure that there are no boundaries and enjoy what you're doing at the same time. So if there's a creative edge to test and constantly challenge my own thoughts and beliefs, then I guess you could call that inspiration.
Well, then that segues right into what are you hoping to do next?
What am I hoping to do next? Well, what I'm planning to do next is how do you take this to the next level and add other shows and ideally create a network and bring other people into the fold so that we have a series of a network really shows that create a desire and a value to other people that are fun and entertaining and informative and impact
Hmm.
everyday lives. Because honestly, you know, as we say in the show, every meal has a story and every story is a feast. So
Yes.
that's true no matter what platform you put it in, whether
Hmm.
it's a business platform or a personal platform or an entertainment platform. food impacts everybody's lives, including in
Hmm.
business. And I can't tell you how many deals and conversations I've had over coffee and eggs and
Yeah.
a glass of wine or
Hmm.
a steak or whatever that might be.
Hmm.
And they're always more, the relationships become either stronger or it's time to go next,
Yeah,
always over a meal,
definitely.
right?
Yeah, no, definitely. Even if it's just over coffee,
Absolutely.
you're sharing something. I mean, that goes back to early civilization, even
Hmm.
before we had civilization, just people sitting around a campfire.
Yeah, gotta
So,
go get that mammoth, gotta eat the woolly bear. One bite at a time.
well, Valentine's Day is coming up, so I'm hoping to eat some chocolate.
Oh, well, we have a Valentine's show coming up on aphrodisiac foods and the stories around that, and it's not
Mm,
what you think.
sounds like fun, though.
Absolutely.
So, if you're thinking of starting a network, and it
Mhm.
sounds to me like you're going into that more of that line of work, even though you still do work in corporate governance,
Correct.
what would your advice be for someone who's starting their own journey?
In podcasting or in anything?
Well, either podcasting or in corporate governance, either
Well,
one
or in business in general,
in general.
yeah, I would say surround yourself with people that are smarter than you and that you are curious about. People who have done things that you want to learn from. I always had the ability to open, I wouldn't say open doors, but when the door was even opened a little bit, I stuck my foot in and I made sure that I was not going to
Hmm.
be kicked out of that room.
Hmm.
And ask questions. Be the one that makes others feel comfortable by asking questions in a way that makes them think and they become a contributor to your life lessons along the way. I've met some amazing, talented leaders over the course of my career. And everybody, I go back to my dad and said, look at, we're all cut out of the same cloth ultimately, whether we're black, white, purple, green, we still deal with pain and sorrow and joy and laughter in many of the same ways. And if you treat people like equals, no matter who they are,
Hmm.
top or bottom, you will learn and do better for yourself and for them.
So ask people
Be
questions.
curious, be curious, and don't be a pain in the neck about it. But, ask open-ended questions. Do not have, never feel like you have to be the one who knows everything because you don't. You never will.
Good. Well, I'm going to ask you one more question.
Okay, go right ahead.
What do you do consistently? So is there something that you do every day? And I don't mean brush your teeth. I don't mean brush your hair. Just something that you do consistently that that helps you, um, I guess, grow your passion, grow your purpose, make your life better every day.
Oh yeah. I I cannot start the day without having a cup of coffee. It's a food thing, right?
It
And
is.
if it's frothy coffee, so you can froth the milk on top,
Right.
oh, it makes it so much more special. So
Yeah.
I like doing that. And I enjoy at the end of the day just reading something that is not business related before I go to bed. Got my Kindle. I know it's a bad thing to do when you're sitting in bed reading, but it's something just to take that edge off and escape into another world for a little bit. So, and I listen to I listen to podcasts in the shower. I multitask in the shower. I use that time. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I've really enjoyed this time with you. I really have. I enjoy all
Yeah.
the time that I'm with you because
Thank you,
you do
Louise.
ask questions. You ask me questions. When I ask you a question, you'll come back and ask me one. You
Hmm.
know, well, what do I think? What are my thoughts? And I really do appreciate that. So Thank you so much for your time today,
You're welcome.
and I look forward to seeing you the next time.
You got it. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. To learn more about Nancy May, visit her website, podcast.familytreefoodstories.com. Thank you so much for joining us at Shaping Our Story. Thanks to our guest, Nancy May, who shared her ability to listen and act with kindness, which is proof that she combines her passion with persistence. If you enjoyed this week's episode, please leave us a comment to inspire us to grow. We'd like to know who you would like us to interview next. Follow us and share this with a friend who would like a little bit of motivation. Until next time, keep the good ideas moving. And if this made you think, please share the thought.